Okay, we're here with ticket 8842. It's an older Selma Bundy student clarinet and will be a well-playing instrument. I think they're pretty in tune. But we are just starting this service, and let's give it a bit of an assessment before we kick it off and get into it properly. The first thing I've noticed, which I did notice when the instrument arrived, was there's a lot of binding around this crow's foot key. And I've just put a screwdriver to it, to the bottom of the rod here, to try and back this out, and it's really jammed up in there. So that's going to be an issue to work through. We're going to have to figure out how to get this rod out of here that supports these two keys here. That's a pivot point here. And that's just really slowing everything down. In fact, yeah, a lot of these bottom four pads are quite slow in their movement. So hopefully we can get everything else removed. Let's test this one here. C-sharp lever, that's just a pivot screw that's moving. Let's test the pivot screw here. Okay, moving just. That's a good sign. The rest, I can test this one, and then the last one I can't test until yeah, that's moving. Okay, good. So it's going to be this rod will be, I think, probably the challenge of this service. That's the pivot screw, that's the pivot screw. Let's check the rod in our F-sharp key here. Oh, yeah, so this is a good example of what we're dealing with. I'm trying to turn the screw here, and the key is bound to the rod. This one is actually moving now, and I can just sort of work on backing that out. But we've got two bound keys, well, three, because down here there's two on the one rod, and here I feel like it'll be the same story. It typically is where there's one or two, there's normally three or four. Let's check out G sharp. G sharp's moving, we're happy about that. And this is another kind of longish rod, now A, D key. Yeah, there we go. So it's just happening all over the instrument. So I'll work on getting this apart, and I'll check back in with you when the instrument's dismantled. Okay, and there we have it. We've gotten our crow's foot hinge rod out. So this is the one in question, and that goes through here and here. So it was. You can see even now it doesn't really want to come back here. Here we go here. So let's put these back in here like this, and yeah, even now, even not on the instrument, it's having trouble coming in and out. Oh, focus. So that's great. That's a great start. That's probably the worst one. Let's go through and dismantle the rest of the instrument. Okay, so we're most of the way through dismantling our bottom joint, and we've hit another super stuck pivot hinge rod here. So it's this one here of our inner lever, our EB lever. Now this one is worse than the first one. So we'll pause here in the recording. I'll take the time it takes to get this one out so we can reapply some oil in there. It's really, in some cases with a student instrument service, you can leave things if they're bound but moving. This is bound and not moving, like this binding. It should be flopping around like this one. So this is not moving, it's a bit seized. So we're going to need to get this out, and I'll come back to you when we've achieved that. Alright, we're back with 8842, and we've had no success with our EB lever here. So we're going to leave the penetrating oil in there for a day and let it do its work, and come back to it, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to free this key. It's moving a little bit better than it was before, thanks to the oil, so hopefully that bodes well for the hinge rod coming out. In the meantime, we're going to dismantle the top joint, just in case we run into anything similar, and then we can let that soak in penetrating oil as well for the same duration if we need to. So we'll get this apart, and then we'll revisit this ticket tomorrow. Alright, so we had success. Fine, we got the thumb ring off. eventually. That we had to work for that, and side B flat G sharp came off, no worries. AD did come off reluctantly. That took a little bit of persuading, and our register key came off with no issues. So we're going to have to just reform the screwdriver slot on the top of the thumb ring hinge rod, because that's a little bit too narrow. That was part of what the issue was with backing it out. It was slightly different from the rest, and just very dry, lots of verdigris built up in there. So I'm happy that's done. This clarinet will now soak, the bottom joint will soak, and we'll try it again tomorrow when it's that oil has really penetrated in there. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, miracles do happen. Here is the hinge rod that we managed to pry out of the EB lever thread of our bottom joint after a day of soaking in penetrating oil. I had, if I'm honest with you, not much hope that this was going to back out. We were actually so lucky that the post of these levers is so deep, because it let us guide it out until we had a bit more purchase. But look at the screwdriver slot here. Look how damaged it was before we could get it out. So a lot of things kind of aligned for this to work and to be able to get out. So that's a little bit of a miracle. We're going to have to recreate this. I might be able to get away with shortening it slightly and cutting a screwdriver slot in the top. We'll have a look. We might swap them around with the other lever posts, because that one was a bit longer. So we're away. We can now properly clean this instrument and then reassemble it, particularly the key work. There was one key which I do want to show you, one pad here off our bottom joint, which I noticed yesterday. I'm not sure if you're going to see that with the light the way it is. There you go, it's a good angle. So this one's been destroyed, so we're going to need to replace at least one pad, and we'll check the rest of them as we clean them to make sure that the rest are okay. Alright, let's get our body and keywork cleaned, and I'll come back to you with the reassembly. Alright, so we're just coming to the end of reassembling our top joint, and there's a couple of things I should mention. First is that I want to put some silencing material, probably some Teflon, on the back of the A key here to silence this sound. And that will just require a bit of re-regulation, that's fine. And also we got to our last key here, our thumb ring key, and here you'll see this one was quite difficult to get out earlier on, and we're going to need to reform the screwdriver slot of this rod. So we'll do that before we reassemble this. So two things to go for our top joint. We're going to do our screwdriver slot on the thumb ring key and put some Teflon on the back of the A key. Okay, I'm just about to clean and treat these pads before I start assembling the instrument, and I thought you should see these two trill keys here, another example of the binding that's going on. So these should be, again, freely spinning around. They share a pivot here, and it's actually quite difficult to move these. So we're going to get these apart, clean and treat the pads, then I'll reassemble the instrument, and it's safe to say I'm going to be liberal with the key oil when I'm reassembling this, because we almost had a critical failure earlier on getting some of these hinge rods apart. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll clean these up, then I'll reassemble the instrument. Okay, and here's our top joint reassembled. We've got some Teflon between the A and the G sharp here, and our back thumb hinge rod. We've dressed and recut the screwdriver slot in the top of that, and that's moving up and down nicely now. Lots of key oil in here, so we should have no more issues going forward if our maintenance is regular with our top joint. Onto our bottom joint, we need to reassemble the keywork. Before we do that, we need to change one pad, and to my eye it looks like a 16mm pad. We're going to change this to a keyed leather pad, and once we've changed it out, we'll reassemble. Okay, 8842, the Bundy that keeps on giving. This now this thumb ring, the hinge rod that that pivots on is we managed to get it out about this far, and now it's just completely seized up. So we're going to work on getting this out, totally bound up. And so I'm glad I started on this joint, because this might have to soak as well, we'll see. We've got our AD to go and our register, and hopefully they come out without too much of a fight. So let's get those off first, and then we'll return to our thumb ring key. Okay, so we've cleaned up our key work, and here are these two nice and free now. So this is what they should have been doing earlier on. Spinning nice and freely, as little resistance as possible, so that the springs can assert their full effect. Let's get this top joint reassembled. Okay, here's our new kid leather pad installed in the cup, and we'll give it a seat and properly sit it, level it in the cup as it goes onto the instrument. So let's get our bottom joint assembled. Okay, we're coming towards the end of this service. I've just given this a bit of a play test. I'm really happy with our EB regulation. So this new pad in here sitting nicely. A really beautiful seat in it. So it's just sitting all the way around straight away. So I'm so happy with that. One thing we need to add to get our long B flat working correctly and regulated is just a bit of silencing and regulation cork on the bottom of our bridge here. The bottom of the top half of our bridge regulation. So we're going to add in some cork here, reassemble this, and then I think we'll be done. And I'll show you, I might do a bit of a play test at the end. Okay, so we've got our bridge cork on here, a thin kind of 1 mil-ish cork. There, regulating and also silencing. Our new EB pad is doing great. I've adjusted some ring heights on our right stack. I've lowered the D ring and lowered the F ring a little bit, but it's still quite high. I like it a bit high. AEG sharp's been re-regulated after we put the Teflon in there, and here's what it sounds like. Okay, and we're all back together now. We've put our regulating cork on the bridge regulation down there and re-regulated that to fit. And I should also mention, I didn't mention before, we've changed our, put the Teflon on the back of our A key. The regulating screw to the back of the A key is actually not quite aligned on this, but that's kind of outside the purview of a service. The scope of work really doesn't involve shifting things like that. That's quite a major change in the key. But nonetheless, it's regulating fine. Here's what it sounds like. And over the bridge is nice and easy. I should say over the brake. Then long B flat up the top in the second register. You notice no timbre change when I put pressure on the speaker key here. So all the regulating is being done by the F key, which is what we want. And that's our E, B trill. So from D down to B, all being done only with the longest extension of that regulation, which is our left pinky here on the lever. The lever that was ironic, that was the most stuck on the instrument. Really smooth and buttery now. So I'm really happy with this. I'll swap it out and it's going in its case, and we'll call it a day.